Next up, a 2-for-1 video. We're going to cover two selectors that you should definitely know about, but they're not as commonly used as the previous selectors I've mentioned. We're going to talk about the adjacent selector and the direct child or direct descendant selector. So the adjacent, technically these are actually called combinators, just for the record. The selector here is H1 and paragraph. Those are element selectors, and this is a combinator that sort of alters the behavior of the overall selection. But most people just call it a selector. Anyway, this plus sign is the adjacent combinator, and what this will do is select the paragraphs that are immediately preceded by an H1, or you could think of it the other way, paragraphs that come right after an H1 on the same level. So they're adjacent. They're not children or parents are not nested in any way. It's one after the other. So we don't have a lot of, I can't think of a good situation really just to demonstrate this here with our current markup, but I'm just going to show you anyway. If we look at our markup, we've got an input and then a button immediately afterwards. It's a login button. If I wrote input and then a plus sign button, and then let's do something like maybe change the background color to, how about pink, just for a quick demo. I'm going to refresh, and we can see that the one button that comes immediately after an input is turned pink. It has a pink background color. Now, I'm not going to leave that, but let's find another example. How about if I actually work with these buttons to vote right here, any button that comes immediately after an H2. So this will apply to all matches. The previous example, there was one match, but if we have more than one, like H2 plus button, maybe I want to resize them. I do think they're a bit big, definitely. So let's do that here. Font size, and I don't know, how about, what did I set them all to up here? 30 pixels, maybe 20 pixels. Refresh. It's not super noticeable, but it did work, but let me just make it really noticeable right away. Background color, magenta. There we go. So every button that comes right after an H2 on the same level, and that's exactly what we have, H2 and then button. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. I don't want magenta, but I'll leave this here so you have a record of it. And now the next selector we'll look at is the direct descendant or direct child combinator. We use the greater than sign, that right angle bracket. I think that's the right angle bracket. I'm not sure which direction you label them by. Anyway, it's a greater than sign. And this is going to select the LIs that are direct children of a div in this case. So not just generic children nested somewhere in a div, but they are the direct descendant, the direct child. So in other words, one level down. If we look at our markup here, what's a good example? I think I'm going to add in an anchor tag in this footer. And I'll do something like this. Content is available under these licenses, and I'm just going to make up a URL, license. Okay. So we have, 5 anchor tags? I think I'm going to move this actually after the nav. We have 5 anchor tags nested in this footer, right? 5 of them are here. I'm going to refresh, just make sure. And they're all getting that red color because of this line here. Any anchor tag in a footer is red, or this color of red. But if I wanted to select this one and single it out specifically, well, it happens to be a direct descendant of the footer. These other ones are nested inside of LIs, inside of a UL, inside of a nav, and then inside of the footer. So I can target this one using the direct descendant selector, footer, and then that greater than bracket, and then anchor tag. And I don't know what I want to do. I guess a different color maybe. Maybe this light greenish blue color. That might be too light there. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, it's pretty light, but you can see that it's working. It's a direct descendant of a footer, versus the others are just general descendants. They're nested further down, but they're not direct descendants. So I don't use it all that often, but it definitely does come up, and there are situations where it is very helpful. So I don't want you to write it off. I just want to make it clear that it's not as commonly used as some of the other ones we've seen, like element selector, ID and class selectors, and a generic descendant selector like we have here. Any anchor tag nested anywhere in a footer, any anchor tag that is directly the child, directly descended of a footer or from a footer. Okay, so that's adjacent selector or combinator using the plus sign, and then the direct child selector / combinator using that greater than bracket.